Hello, hello. It's Celeste of Astrology by Celeste. Yes, it is. On this rainy Friday morning in California, we're having snow. It is a very strange time. Yes. Hello, Beetle Khalidi. Welcome, welcome. Hi, everyone. Hi, Emaloni. Oh, hi, Brooklyn Astrology. So nice to see you. And Nikki, welcome, welcome. And Yogi around the world. Hey, hey, Anna, an inner consultant. Oh, I like that. And MD Miracle and Misa Major. Welcome. Taylor Shuler is coming on with me. I see you there, Taylor. Let me invite you to join. Hi, Aunt Jay. Hi from Turkey. Hello, hello. I hope you're doing well after all that has been going on in Turkey. Oh, here you are. Yay, yay. Oh my God, you look so beautiful.
So do you. Look at you. Hello.
It is so nice to see you. I'm so excited for our conversation today.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad to be doing this and talking with you right now.
Yes. Yes, yes. So let me introduce you to my audience. So Taylor is an award-winning astrologer and the host of On Thriving Astrology and More with Taylor Schuler. I had the pleasure and opportunity.
I had the pleasure and the privilege. Really.
We talked about the moon recently, so you can go check on her podcast everywhere you listen to podcasts. And she has a YouTube channel, so you can see us if you go to YouTube. Taylor enjoys supporting those who are facing crossroads in life, love or career, or on their journey towards thriving and embracing a greater sense of clarity about their gifts and talents. And you blend, like me, I love blending astrology. So you blend evolutionary, traditional, Hellenistic, and modern astrology. Yes, yes. And yeah, you're going to speak at NORWAC in May this year, and I will be there. What is your topic? Do you know?
Yeah, I'm talking about finding your purpose, passion, mission, and vocation with astrology. So what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for, which is also known as your ikigai, or your reason for being.
I love that. Okay, I can't wait. I will be there, and I will be sure to attend your talk. Yeah, so today we're going to talk about the Jupiter and Chiron conjunction. Yeah. So,
I'm excited.
What did you say?
I'm excited. Can you hear me okay? Because sometimes I've got you on a little stand and sometimes it covers the mic, so I don't know if it's okay.
Yeah, I can hear you just fine. Yeah. Oh, Anje, are you going to NORWAC? I think Brooklyn Astrology was saying she might be going, she might not. So hopefully she'll be there too. So we'll all be there to support you and your talk. Aww. For anyone new to me, I'm Celeste of Astrology by Celeste, also an astrologer and a podcaster as well. I have the Celestial Insights podcast. So why don't we jump in? Is there anything else you wanted to share about yourself before we start talking about Jupiter and Chiron?
I'll just say, if you're going to be in San Diego on March 10th, I'll see you there. I'll be at the San Diego Astrology Society. So, yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Great. So people check that out as well. So why don't you tell us what can you explain Jupiter, the archetypal energy, and Chiron, and what you think about them meeting together?
Oh, that's a good
in Aries.
Yes, that's a really good place to start. Okay, so Jupiter is the planet of abundance and expansion. Jupiter, this very jovial god, right? Big juicy energy is what we get from Jupiter. But we also get some other stuff too. We get the law from Jupiter, man-made law, right? So Saturn, we sometimes think of as the boundary and the outer thing, but Saturn is actually natural law, the kind of law we get from nature. Jupiter is the kind of structure and law and rules that we have made as people, as mankind, or humankind. So it's sort of we think of Saturn even as buildings, but how do we lay out a city? That's very Jupiter, actually. Jupiter is known as the greater benefic. So there's planets that are called benefics and malefics. And benefic is beneficial, A malefic is like not beneficial. It's not so cozy and warm. But Jupiter's sort of like cozy, warm daddy energy, you know? And so he brings us abundance and blessings and expands everything he touches. And, you know, sometimes there can be too much of a good thing. Jupiter also has this 12-year cycle. So every 12 years, he comes back to the same sign. So, you know, that's very connected to astrology if we think of the fact that there's like 12 signs and 12 houses, right? And so, and what do we do as astrologers? We're advisors. So Jupiter sometimes can be like a teacher or a guru, a counselor, an advisor as well. So those are some of like the archetypes of Jupiter, is to bring blessings. But yeah, again, sometimes
I like to call it the cosmic Santa Claus.
Yes, I was thinking that too. I'm glad you said it. He's totally Santa Claus.
Yeah. So they're meeting on March 11th at 14 degrees of Aries. There's a question about that. So look at your chart and see where 14 degrees of Aries is. I love that. Can you dive in a little bit more about natural law and like Saturn being natural law versus Jupiter being man-made law? I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, so this is not my original idea, unfortunately. I wish it was. This is Alice Sparkly Cat, their work. And so in their book, Post-Colonial Astrology, Alice Sparkly Cat really lays out these archetypes of like of all of the planets, that, or at least I think the 7 traditional planets. I'm like looking for the book over there. And so in the chapter on Saturn, they talk about how, I mean, you really just have to read the book. Like, I'm not going to do it justice in 30 seconds or anything like that. But essentially, Saturn is the planet that is the last planet we can see with our naked eye if we look at the sky. And so from an archetypal lens, some deductions that you can make from that are it's the limit, it's the end of reality, it's the end of the material and the things that we can see. And so in post-colonial astrology, they take this back to like the origins of society and saying that Saturn was actually sort of like the asteroid, I will say it's sort of like the asteroid series, or the dwarf planet series. Which was the mother of Persephone. Persephone went into the underground, was stolen by Pluto for half the year. And when Persephone went underground, it was like the harvest, you know, the land was fallow, it was after the harvest. But when Persephone came above ground, it was springtime and the flowers would bloom and grow and things were beautiful and there was fruit and stuff. But when Persephone was gone, there was grief. And so I draw this analogy to Saturn because in post-colonial astrology, a lot of the language is about the harvest and it's about agrarian society. And so Saturn is this hard work that you have to do and put in, but also the sacrifice that you have to give and the things that can be taken away sometimes when there is no harvest, right? When there is no harvest, what happens? People starve, you know, and when people starve, they die. And so it was like very serious that you have to put in the hard work. But even if you put in the hard work, if Saturn's upset, like y'all not going to eat, you know? And so it was like, how do we give sacrifice in advance so that we don't have to be sacrificed? That was part of Saturn, but also, how else to say it? That sometimes natural law, like just like nature, just taketh away, right?
Yes.
Like, there's nothing you can do. It just, nature takes it away.
Yeah.
Even if you put in the hard work. Whereas Jupiter was seen as like, came after Saturn. And so people became like outcasts with Saturn. Like Saturn was also associated with the outcasts because the farmers' agrarian life was outside of the city. But Jupiter was more of like a city god. So Jupiter was like more worshipped in the city and came afterwards and was like the fun Santa Claus guy, but also like, what do you have in a city? You have law and order. So like that natural law that Saturn is, that takes away, like regardless of how much work you put into it, Jupiter was more of like, you can be controlled. It's like there's an abundance and too much of a good thing is okay. We can deal with that. We can deal with the gambling. We can deal with like temples with prostitutes and things like that. We can like put laws around this and really like structure the streets and you know, have like a city plan and stuff like that. That was more of like Jupiter.
How interesting. I haven't read the book yet. I'll have to check out that book.
So good.
Post-Colonial Astrology by Alice Sparkley Katz.
Yeah.
So you're recommending that too?
Yeah, highly
Okay.
recommend.
Okay. Well, that's great. Yeah, and it's really nice. I like how you said, because Jupiter and Saturn are the social planets that deal with society. Jupiter gives, Saturn contracts, Jupiter expands, Saturn contracts. So, and I love that you brought that up because
Yeah.
Saturn's changing into Pisces on March 7th, a sign where Saturn will be reporting into Jupiter
Yes.
for the next 2.5 years. So when this conjunction happens, yeah, Saturn will be reporting into Jupiter. Okay, so let's move on to Chiron. You did a great job setting that framework of Jupiter.
Yeah, thank you. So Chiron, I'm just looking at got all my notes and stuff on Chiron because it's a lot, and I'm definitely a forgetter. I got my Pisces rising. I'm like,
oh yeah,
what are you?
I should have asked you. Tell people your big three.
Okay, so I'm a Capricorn sun, Scorpio moon, Pisces rising.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
With Neptune approaching my ascendant, hence the forgetfulness and confusion. So so it's my big three. So Chiron is an asteroid, and it's an asteroid that actually travels between Jupiter. We usually say Saturn and Uranus, but it actually dips into the orbit of Jupiter and then goes through the orbit of Saturn to the orbit of Uranus. So those three outer planets, it sort of travels around between them. And so not a planet, but an asteroid. So that's first. And then second, who is Chiron, right? So you might see Chiron Chiron therapy or Chiron Healing Institute, or, these aren't actual things that I'm aware of, but I have noticed branding. It's sort of a brand, but it has to do with healing. And so we refer to Chiron as the wounded healer. So Chiron was born to Zeus and a sea nymph. So Zeus was the god who would, he was a philanderer. He cheated on his wife, Hera, Juno, whatever you want to call her. And so the sea nymph is not immortal, but is obviously a magical being. And Zeus is immortal. So there's this baby that is made who is half immortal, half not immortal. Sort of like Hercules-ish, I think. And he comes out as half horse, half man. So he's got he actually, I think he has human legs in the front, and he's got horse legs in the back and a horse behind too, but he's fully all man in the front. So not even like a centaur, but centaur-like. But amongst the centaurs, he was even they were y'all, you don't even have the right legs, my dude. You're not one of us, right? So it was sort of he had this disability, I don't want to say disability. He was differently abled than the other centaurs and differently abled than humans as well. And he's a magical being. And Zeus doesn't want him. Sea nymph mama doesn't want him. So he becomes an orphan. And then Apollo comes along and raises Chiron. And so Apollo takes him under his wing, teaches him everything he knows, and he knows medicine, he knows lots of stuff, and he basically becomes a great healer. Well, one day Chiron basically, oh, you saw my Scorpio, yeah, that comment. Yeah. Thank you. So Chiron gets shot by a poison arrow, and it's I believe in his thigh, not the Achilles heel like Achilles, but somewhere in the leg he gets shot with the arrow. And because he's half immortal, it doesn't heal. Or half not immortal, it doesn't heal. But he doesn't die immediately because of that bit of immortality. And he ends up living, I'll spoil the story, for 900 years. But for most of that period of time, the wound just festers, and he takes all of his healing knowledge and tries to use it on himself and is never able to heal himself. He gets this wife, Chariclo. She cares for him and stuff. We don't really know too much about Chariclo, unfortunately. I think Melanie Reinhardt is trying to learn more about Chariclo, so follow Melanie Reinhardt's work if you're interested in that. But then, you know, along his life, you know, he's known as the grandfather of medicine because he actually trained and initiated Asclepius, and he initiated many heroes. So Jason, who went on the mission or the quest for the Golden Fleece, Achilles, Orpheus, and Hercules, and many others. And he took this healing knowledge to initiate not just Asclepius as a healer, but you'll notice like Achilles was a soldier, because if you're going like to know how to heal is also to know how to take away, right? So that's what we were talking about with Saturn before. Like to know how to provide is also to know how to take away. So soldiers would kill, but they would also need to know how to heal their own. But if you know how to heal, right, you also know the thing that's gonna get the person gone efficiently. So that's what Chiron did. And if you think about it, there's a couple people who've done work on this. The two that come to mind are David Cochran and Elsa, which I think Elsa's website's Elsa. I don't know if Elsa has social media, but wonderful astrologer. And what do you need to do to like keep the attention of Asclepius, Hercules, Achilles, Jason, Orpheus, and so on and so forth? You need to be pretty darn charismatic, right? So their work speaks to how Chiron has a quiet charisma. And so David Cochran learned this from Elsa, and Elsa was just, you know, came up with this. I forget how, but it's, you can look up the article if you're interested in learning more. But then David Cochran, his thing is vibrational astrology, but also that he's this amazing scientist who does, you know, statistical regression, essentially. And the statistical regressions that he did were, I believe it was a Sun Chiron connection or a Chiron Moon perhaps connection. And so he was looking for, I think it was 10 minutes of orb, which is very small, right?
Yeah.
He found the people who had this Chiron Sun connection to be great athletes, to be extremely charismatic, and very talented in whatever their field was, especially music and acting. And part of it,
wow, I had no idea. I haven't heard anything about this. Okay.
Yeah, and so Chiron, part of the reason for that we can bring back to astrology is if you're talking about Saturn and, you know, Jupiter a little bit, but really Saturn and Uranus, the archetypes there are Saturn is about what's real and what's tangible and material. And, you know, like what you can put your hands on. But Uranus is like electrical energy that comes through the chart. And you can think of that electrical energy maybe akin to the sun and our vitality, but very different. If you have substance and you have energy, like think the one example David Cochran gives is Michelle Kwan, I think, like an ice skater who just like puts this power and energy and charisma, because they're entertaining you while they're on the ice. Into like a triple flip on the ice. And it's like the amount of power that you need to glide and then send into the ground to like ascend up from something hard and cold, which is Saturn ice, right? Speaks to that Chiron energy where it's taking the Saturn and Uranus, and it has no other choice but to channel it into something or be consumed. So that's a little bit about, that was a lot about Chiron. So I'll stop there.
So, but Chiron, like in the chart, when you look at it, the people's chart, do you look at it as like the wounded healer, the place where people can, like they have like some kind of wound from childhood, but as time goes on, they can maybe never totally heal themselves, like Chiron could never heal his own wound, but can help other people or channel it to helping other people by example or
absolutely.
or what
And depending on where it is in the chart, if it's prominent on an angle or like close to a luminary or something, it could speak to the fact that the person is a teacher, is a mentor, is a healer, is a subject matter expert, is someone who's very Virgo in nature. Chiron's connected to Virgo, it's connected to the 6th house. So where we develop expertise and where we pass that expertise on to future generations. And where I like to think about where we like to make the world a better place. The other way that I see this, and I think it's very distinct from the nodes. So the nodes are another way that you could say something very similar, but it is different. And so the difference with the nodes is like the nodes are where the eclipses happen and they're directly opposite in the chart. And the north node, the way that I use it is to say, like, what are you supposed to be doing or learning eventually that's kind of difficult for you? But the south node is where I think is a wound too, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's usually a place that hurts. There's some pain there because there was a challenge, which is very akin to Chiron, but different. Because eventually the reframing that you need on that south node is to take the gold from it, right? So like if I've got the south node in my 7th house, relationships were difficult for me early on. And so the reframe becomes, how can I take my relationships to actually support me to go towards my north node in the 1st house, to be myself, to be independent by accepting the support of partnership, whether that's a spouse or a business partner or something else. Whereas with Chiron, that reframe may never happen. You know, it may just sort of be that thing that aches and is like, I can't, you know, like the Sisyphean almost battle of our life. That's like, yeah, I'm good at it because I have no other choice. Like for me, I got Chiron like at the bottom of my chart on my IC. So like, I'm very good at moving around and finding places to live, but I can't put roots down. So, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I have Chiron in the 10th house. Yeah.
There you go.
For my midheaven.
Yeah.
So that's so interesting. In Aries, yes.
Yeah. And so Aries, this is interesting, right? So Aries is the first sign, you could say, of the zodiac, right? It starts the year off in springtime. It's a fire sign. So very intuitive, very a lot of energy, very fast moving, fast paced, ruled by Mars, a soldier, a warrior, right? Who Chiron would work with. And so combining these to say, like, we've got Chiron and Aries. So what does that mean? And it's like, well, a wound in the identity, a wound in being myself, a wound in just like, you know, maybe I did something too quickly and someone was like, slow down, or the wound of individualism, I think too, just collectively.
Yeah. And what do you think about them coming Jupiter, meeting Chiron? So this planet of blessings, meeting a planet of like wounds that don't heal. What do you see?
Well, you know, I mean, one like very clear thing that you could say, like the best way to say this is like, it is an optimal time for self-healing.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like if I had to give you a one sentence, optimal time for massive self-healing, like massive knowledge of the self, like stepping into our individualism in the most healing way possible to heal our wounds, whether they're intergenerational or individual or whatnot. And also just like an abundance of sharing of knowledge of how we can, growing up in the 80s, or the 70s too. And, you know, there's so much too, because there's also the United States Chiron return. So the United States has Chiron at 20 degrees of Aries. And by the end of this year, Chiron will get to 19 degrees, 57 minutes of Aries. So it's coming within 3 minutes of orb of where it was on July 4th, 1776. So I bring this up for a couple of reasons. One, and I know I'm talking a lot, so you can stop me if you need to.
No, keep going. Yeah, no, I love talking about the mundane events. So, what do you think it means that we're having our Chiron return as a nation?
So I'll just back up for a second. So Chiron was discovered, and let me look here. Chiron was discovered on November 1st, 1977 at 10 a.m. in Pasadena, California. Prior to that, we didn't know about Chiron, but it was there. So we can look back prior to that and be like, oh, okay. But one thing of the things that we kind of think in astrology is it's not always appropriate to look at something that we know of now that they didn't know about then, because part of the entrance of something is like it's happening in the in the ethos, in the collective at the time, and that's part of why it's discovered at that time, I'm going to ignore that because I'm just taking that as an assumption, and I get it, and I still want to, you know, analyze what was going on from that perspective. So I'll just say that. Now, when it was discovered, it was at 3 degrees of Taurus. Aries comes before Taurus, which means that Chiron has not yet made one complete revolution back to the same place as it was when it was discovered.
Mm-hmm.
So we have experienced Chiron and Jupiter together roughly every 13.58, I think, years. They conjoin in a new sign. And, or I'm sorry, it might be 12.58. And so we've had Jupiter and Chiron in Taurus in every single sign except for Aries so far. We have had Jupiter and Chiron together in the past in the sign of Aries. We just didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Because the last time it happened was during the civil rights movement.
Ah, okay.
So we can look at like what Jupiter and Chiron mean together, but we have never consciously experienced it, if that makes sense. So this is the first time, which is an Aries thing, the first.
Yeah.
This is the first time we get to consciously experience a Jupiter-Chiron conjunction in the sign of Aries, which I'm really excited about. Now, the last time it happened, like I said, was during the civil rights movement. But when it was discovered, there was a lot of new age stuff going on, a lot of new age healing and stuff. And so that's part of why Chiron is the wounded healer. But so when Chiron things come up, we can see a proliferation of new age healing, new age information coming out, period. And so I think that knowledge right now is going to have to do with a couple of things. Like I said, last time, civil rights movement. So my civil rights, Aries, as an individual, right?
Mm-hmm.
And over the past couple of years, we've had a resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement. You know, we see Ukraine fighting for independence, right? So even though it's a country, we can look at a country as an individual unit. And then
it's really interesting because yesterday in the news, China was speaking up about how they want peace to come to Ukraine, or like kind of pushing Russia into like ending this war. And with Saturn going into Pisces, wouldn't that be amazing if Jupiter Chiron brought an end to?
wow.
That would be amazing. We can all like hopefully put that out in the collective. Yeah,
that would be really cool. You know, I mean not really cool, that would be an amazing, wonderful, I mean, I'm sort of speechless at it, you know, what that would be. It would be amazing. That would be off the charts.
yeah. Yeah. Something's going to happen around that date that hopefully will be very positive.
Yeah.
Jupiter, Chiron, and Aries. I mean, also we can think about like a forest fire could be something that comes up around that time, like this magnification of Aries energy. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it out there. I want it to be like an end to this conflict or any other of the conflicts all around the world that are constantly going on. It's probably Pollyanna to think that could happen, but hey,
But
why
that's
not?
what we need. We need that energy to be out there because so I'll bring us back to like the Saturn. Let me just hit. Okay, so back to the Saturn-Uranus orbit. So one of the things Chiron does is it makes a return every 51 years. So everyone gets a Chiron return. They're going to feel it from ages 47 to 51. Now, Chiron moving between Saturn, Jupiter, Uranus, what it does is it brings an opportunity for intergenerational healing. Because every Chiron return is not going to be the same. In 51 years, or 51 years ago, Saturn and Uranus are going to be in different positions, but they're going to be in a place that allows a grandparent and a grandchild, and then the parent who's in between, and that in-between generation, to all really reckon with, like, what's going on. Because if you think about it, like, not all, but some grandparents are sort of like in that Chiron return period when they become grandparents. Mm-hmm. And so they may have the same Chiron as their grandchild. it may be different. You know, you could have a parent and a child, certainly, especially if it's like a father and a child who have the same Chiron. And so that's one of the opportunities that Chiron presents for us, is the opportunity for intergenerational healing. And I think it's really important to call out, because back to your question about the US Chiron return, one of the opportunities that Chiron always presents is for debt jubilees to happen. So debt jubilee is like complete debt relief, like debt being completely forgiven, which was something that used to happen every 50 years. Like, I don't know the stats, but like this apparently is a thing. Like 50 years, silver anniversary, time to just write off the debts. We don't do that anymore because capitalism. But we've been talking about student loan relief, right? That's an individual, Aries, who then has this painful thing, this debt on our shoulders for our own sort of like education, so that we could go out there and like make it on our own merit, Aries, right?
Yeah.
But instead we're saddled with this debt and sort of like enslaved for life. That's a pretty chirotic archetype right there. So yeah, I'm all for, you know, that's me. I'm all for it.
Yeah, that could be coming. Student debt relief. They've been talking about it for ages.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah.
But, you know, some of the things that come up when we look back at the United States with Chiron, I'll just start out with some of the negative stuff. Just being realist over here, my Capricorn, Saturn stuff coming out. But we do see really painful memories. You know, we see the story of the other and the outcast and the foreigner and unwanted people, or the unwanted person, the Civil Rights Act, the Civil Rights Movement, the labor movement. We do see changes in currency and legal tender. We see inflation and job loss. Barbara Hand-Clow points out that, like I said about the debt jubilee, Chiron is also connected to the Kondratiev cycle, which is about inflation and job loss. And we also see changes in health and medicine. And I was looking back at March 6th, 1821, and I think that's before the Civil Rights Movement, when Chiron and Jupiter were conjunct in Aries. And well, it would have had to be at least a couple before. And I think this might have been a Mars and Gemini thing too. I have to look back at the chart, but my notes are saying March 6, 1821, there was a Greek war for independence against the Ottomans at that time. And that was right before the liberation of Kalamata. So to your point about China coming out and saying, hey, Ukraine, you know, we want them to be independent. Well, we've got precedents for that astrologically, in terms of like, that is absolutely something that can happen, is the liberation of a country. You know, it was also Chiron and Jupiter were conjunct in Aries during the Revolutionary War as well. And the Boston Tea Party took place December 16, 1773. And Jupiter was at 13 minutes of Aries, 0 degrees, 13 minutes of Aries. And Chiron was at 4 degrees, 29 minutes of Aries. Now, the moon was also highlighting Pluto in Capricorn, which is where Pluto is today. Let's see, Mars was with Mercury in Aquarius. We've got Mercury in Aquarius now, and Mars is reporting to Mercury because Mars is in Gemini. And let's see what else. There was some other stuff going on that's still a little bit of a distraction. It doesn't really matter. But
this was a time of the Boston Tea Party?
Yeah. And then, you know, there was also this really interesting thing. So June 16, 1787, there was a Jupiter Chiron conjunction at 8 degrees and 59 minutes of Gemini, which you'll recognize is where Mars stationed on January 12th of this year, 2023. And so
and it's the United States Uranus. What happened back then?
Yeah, so it looks like just 4 days later, one of the founding fathers, Oliver Ellsworth, who's a framer of the Constitution, he moved at the federal convention that the government be called the United States. So that degree is about the naming of the country.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, listen, there's a comment here. DMD Life says, wasn't there an Old Testament celebration where debts were forgiven every 50 years or so?
Yes.
So that's what you were talking about
Yep.
earlier, right?
Yes. Yeah,
What, what,
exactly.
what did you call it?
Um, just
Something,
like a debt, like a jubilee.
debt jubilee. Yes. So yes, DMD Life.
Yeah,
Yes. We were just talking about that. That is similar to the Chiron
yeah, and also
cycle.
the
Yeah.
Pentecost was maybe in biblical times what they called it. Like the
Mhm.
Pentecost is like it's the point where if you've done the work, then you can ascend to the next spiral of development. But if you haven't done the work, if we haven't used those outer planets, our Uranus opposition around age 44, right? Our first Saturn return between 27 and 30, and a second Saturn, the second Saturn return comes after your Chiron return. But basically, those are three of the initiations into becoming an elder, right? You have, you could see your first Saturn return, but I mean, maybe that's more of adulthood. But the Uranus opposition, and then the Chiron return at 51, and then the Saturn return, 56 to 58 ish, right? Yeah. Then
Yeah.
so bad at math, but those are the three initiations into becoming an elder. And I find that, if you don't get your Chiron return, like quote unquote, right, like that second Saturn return is not going to be so kind to you. But if you actually do the Chiron work to heal, by using the Saturn and the Uranus, it's a point that you can then ascend. And mature, and then you get to begin again because it's a spiral, right? It spirals up, and then you can kind of like literally up level. You get to the next level, and so you are asked to develop mastery through Saturn's discipline and Saturn's long-term dedication, and also Uranus's like divine electrical energy that you're just channeling. Hi, Wendy. Oh my gosh, hello. And I saw Tara before. I haven't been looking at everyone who's joining, but I see you, Wendy. Oh, Wendy's my friend.
Oh, hi, Wendy. Welcome, welcome. Yeah. Yeah. So you had to do the work of the Uranus opposition, the Chiron return, and then the second Saturn return. And then you become like the wise elder or the crone, like Mother Maiden Crone kind of
Exactly.
elevation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like the
I
way
love
you say
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting. I wonder if there will be like freedom fighting that has a success story around that March 11th, because we're also seeing Pluto going into Aquarius March 23rd, which to me, that transformation of the collective,
Yeah.
uh, the power to the people kind of thing, like maybe there'll be some big change like in a place like Iran or Afghanistan, where especially women are being very uh
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
abused and lacking in rights and all of that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. So, like, to your question about the U.S. Chiron return, I think we saw a couple of things like in the 60s and 70s, right? When Chiron was in Aries last time, that's also connected to the US Chiron return in Aries. And it is about like Martin Luther King, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, during the King assassination, I think that we had Eris, Sun, Saturn, and North Node all in Aries. And Jupiter then was in Leo. So Leo makes a flowing aspect to, so it's not a conjunction, but it's probably the second closest thing you could get to a conjunction in terms of amplifying energy, right? A trine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very fiery. And that was, that was a huge wound that our country has, that
Mm-hmm.
this person who is fighting for freedom, fighting for rights, fighting for autonomy, for personal sovereignty. Personal sovereignty is something that we've been talking about since the pandemic started, and people have different opinions on it. And now we're going to get eclipses in Aries and Libra, and so again, North Node in Aries, just like we had it, that we're about to have that later this year. And so I think we have an opportunity to heal a lot of the pain and the wounds that we had from the civil rights era that are just coming up again now 50 years later. And there was also Peter Norman at the 1968 Olympics in Mexico City, with John Carlos and Tommy Smith, where they gave the Black Power salute at the Olympics, right? So that's another sort of very powerful symbol of what Chiron in Aries could be for us in terms of
people asserting their own like rights to dignity, and
with an extreme amount of quiet charisma. They literally didn't say anything, but they stood there, and that photo is iconic. It was a photo that I had on a poster as a freshman in college, because, and like, I was just sort of like learning about this stuff, learning about all of these things, and I didn't know the whole story, but that photo was absolutely, how they say, a picture's worth a million words, and feelings. Yeah. It was really powerful.
Yes. Oh, thank you, C. Brule. The word was oppressed. I couldn't think of the word to talk about like what people are experiencing in places like Iran and Afghanistan, women being oppressed, and there's oppression all over the world. So hopefully, yeah, this double dose of Jupiter amping up Chiron will bring more healing, I hope, rather than hurting. You know, when the Chiron's activated, you can often see it can go either way. There's like a choice. It's like with the nodes, you have the choice to go to the north node or the south node. You go to the healing or the hurting with Chiron.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. And Chiron came back into Aries in 2018 and 2019, and that's when we started seeing the Black Lives Matter movement pick up again, and we also saw the murder of innocent Black citizens like Breonna Taylor in their homes by police, and then recently, oh my goodness, I can't.
In I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, and they
Tyree
have the same.
Nichols.
Yes, thank you, Tyree Nichols, and they were born on the same day, right?
Yes. Breonna Taylor and Tyree Nichols were born on the same day. Yeah, both died from police by police. Yeah,
by police, and so we're seeing those wounds related to inhabiting our individual and inherited, not our chosen identities. And also like these desperate pleas that come along with it, right? Like the right to live, the right to breathe, the right to like not have our rights infringed upon and compromised. And so we've seen in this way, like activism related to Black Lives Matter, but also like the inverse related to those historically representing the oppressor, or people concerned about like their rights being compromised in any way. And one of the things that Barbara Hand Clow said when she wrote the book on Chiron was, one of the quotes in there is that for those concerned about the nuclear dilemma, the healing warrior archetype is a profound antidote to excessive political militarism. So the reason that I bring it up is not to say like, oh, we should have like more of like, expect more of this or anything like that, but really that it could be an antidote. Chiron could bring us the medicine that we need for this to stop if we've done the work and we're ready to ascend. And before I logged in for this, I was thinking, have we done the work in terms, like I was just thinking about student debt relief, and I was thinking about like Congress in the United States, and like, are we past being petty? Have we done the work, Mars and Gemini, to reflect on how we speak to one another and how we, write things, legislate things, you could even say, in order to pass the laws that need to be passed, and then allow for that Uranian inspiration, sudden, click to happen?
Yeah.
Or have we not done the mature, responsible, like development that needs to be done in order for some of these things to happen? And
Catherine, I agree with Catherine. I don't think we're past being petty yet. Yeah. But that could be legislation. Jupiter, the law with Chiron, legislation about the police brutality or something like that could be coming up with the conjunction.
And legislation about our health, legislation about bodily autonomy. I was reading something just
Uh-huh.
this morning that's going on in the UK about the NHS getting pummeled or something like that by, I don't know, whatever political party, the Tories or something like that. And how people are having to get like the NHS is trying to encourage citizens to get private health insurance. I could be wrong. I'm not up on that, but Chiron is health. Chiron is medicine, right? And so we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about the health system. And in the United States, we've been talking about bodily autonomy in terms of reproductive rights. So not just like, you know, the vaccine and wearing masks and stuff like that, but also women's rights, women's civil rights for bodily autonomy. And so, yeah, and we are seeing the legislation about that being very active right now,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this
Maybe
is,
some kind of executive order could be coming, so we can keep that in mind for that date as well.
and pray, you know, whatever, meditate, pray, put the energy
Yeah.
out there, because the
Yeah.
energy is now to like actually have something good happen. So I feel like part of the message and invitation with Chiron and Jupiter is to say, please use your voice. Your voice needs to be heard. And one of the ways that I see this is, speaking of debt and inflation and the Kondratiev cycle, is that in the United States, the Fed, when they get up at the microphone, nobody listens. And part of the reason they don't listen is because we don't understand what they're saying, because they put it in jargon that most people do not understand.
Yeah.
But if you listen to people who can interpret it, like one of my favorite podcasts is Pitchfork Economics, and they do a great job of translating stuff for layman's ears. And they literally have been saying, we're raising inflation to, forgive my French, piss you off, make you hurt as an individual. The many people make you hurt and feel the pain so that you speak to your boss and you speak to power, and it's speaking truth to power in order to make a change and saying, you have a voice, you have a say, you have power, Chiron and Aries. And if we can expand Jupiter, your voice, if you can get over feeling small, if you can get over feeling powerless, if you can get over yourself and speak up for what you need to feel good, to heal, to share your vulnerable story about what it is that you've been through that's been hurting, that's a pain point for you, you can contribute to the greater good and pass that on and initiate future generations to do the same, just like Chiron did for us.
Wow. Wow. I love that. Yes. 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 I love that. Yeah. And I wonder, yeah, Ashley brought up, have you read much of the Magi astrologers?
Oh, yeah, I like the Magi astrology.
Yeah, because
Yep.
they talk about Chiron being the asteroid of marriage,
Yes.
as well as about career stuff. So
Yes, and I definitely, I have experience with Chiron in relationship personally, and I have to say they're right about it.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
bang on
about
with,
seeing the soul of someone, right? Like you
yeah.
really see their soul if you're connected to their Chiron, and it becomes a very, very deeply healing soul connection, but also one that allows for that Saturnian maturity
Mm-hmm.
to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Often see in marriage partners, their Chiron's connected to a personal planet.
Mm-hmm.
Or yeah, the Magi work is amazing. I think it's really accurate. And see people like changing jobs or getting a promotion when their Chiron's activated and things like that. So
Yep.
people who have planets around 14 degrees, so let's say, even 10 to 15 or 16, 17 of the cardinal signs of Aries, they'll be experiencing conjunction.
Mm-hmm.
Libra, they'll be experiencing this conjunction opposite them. And then if it's Cancer or Capricorn, it will be in a square. What do you have, what should people who have planets or points or nodes around those things, what do you think they should be considering?
I think a lot about the Aries just because it's in Aries, and I've been having a lot of like Aries Virgo people come through in terms of clients and personally lately, and Aries and Virgo are actually connected by something we call the Antisha. So in terms of Aries, you know, this is the opportunity for you to embody. When a planet comes and conjoins, it's asking you to really, really embody. And so if you can, if it's your sun, you know, like how is this connected to your vital energy? How is this connected to what's motivating you right now? If it's your Mars, like, you know, how also sort of like energy levels, but like more literal, like the literal energy that you have or drive that you have. And if it's your moon, like, you know, how are you feeling? How are you feeling right now? And then how can you use what you're feeling to help other people? If it's your Mercury, like you're the voice that we need, you know, so please come on, let's use that voice. And if it's your Venus, how are your relationships bringing you this lesson or this opportunity for embodiment? And in conjunct, it's, you know, it's, I have it natally, and I have Chiron as a part of 2 yads in my chart. So, oh, someone did really good work on this. Stephen Forrest.
Uh-huh.
And so if you have a yod, so, you know, if it's an inconjunct, is there a planet that is sextile? So that you can then, and if you do, you want to look at the ones that are sextile as the foundation in order to address the inconjunct. So it really depends on your chart individually. It depends on what planets are involved, but the irritation that the inconjunct is going to create for you by this, you know, look for the outlet. If there's no planet there, there might be a midpoint, you know, there might be an angle, there might be something there that you could look at and use the sextiles there as the foundation in order to sort of like shoot forward, and then really, really, like, if Chiron is the focal point, like become the Chiron.
Become the healer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. And so Pale Sala asked about inconjuncts, Mercury, Virgo, and
Oh, and Scorpio.
Scorpio. Yeah. So they're also maybe experience. If you have planets right about 14 of either of those degrees, be conscious about what's going on, or if there is any kind of illness or anything. Hopefully Jupiter coming there will help heal, because I see that quincunx, that 150-degree aspect, shows up a lot in illnesses or health things.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully that would be helpful for that. Yeah. And there was a question about Antisha, so the amount of light. Yeah. Do you have a quick explanation of Antisha?
Yeah, it's sort of like you fold the, I mean, a quick way to say it is like you fold the chart in half is one way to see it, but it's about like the rising, the time it takes for a zodiac sign to rise above the ascendant. And so you get a certain amount of light and a certain amount of speed. And so there's a similar quality of the signs based on those qualities, right? So like when it's Virgo season, it's going to be a similar amount to like when it's Aries season. So there's like a similar quality, but they're opposites. It's like a book, like folding a piece of paper on itself, sort of matching in an equal opposite way.
Yeah. And when planets are in Antisha, it's like a conjunction, right? Like
yeah, they talk to one another. Exactly.
Yeah, a secret hidden conjunction. Yeah, that you can Google it to see more about Antisha and see what's Antisha in your chart. And sometimes people in your life will come in on an Antisha point or something like that. Yeah.
Now, Sparkly Cat again has a great article on Antisha that you can see, and with some diagrams as well.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I need to read her book at some point. I've got so many on my shelf. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you're seeing about this transit in the collect? It's almost like I feel like it should be a day where we should mark our calendars for March 11th, 12th, and really stay present about what we see coming into our lives or in the collective about expansion, as well as healing things, or people using their voice to stand up against oppression.
The entire month of March, like you mentioned, Pluto is moving into Aquarius March 23rd, Saturn's moving into Pisces March 7th. I think March 3rd, we get a Jupiter-Venus conjunction, right? And then
Yeah.
after this, yeah.
Yeah. What's really interesting about this Chiron Jupiter connection, Venus is going to beat Jupiter, then Chiron, and then Jupiter and Chiron are going to meet. So there's the benefics are both in Aries about the self, like preparing us in a sense for that eclipse that's coming on 29 Aries on April 19th, about people like standing up and asserting themselves in ways.
Yeah, and also that a few hours after the Chiron Jupiter conjunction, Venus meets up with the dwarf planet Eris, and Eris is a goddess of war and destruction, really. And so Chiron was this like model of high warrior energy, unlike the other centaurs. And low warrior energy is something that comes to protect the feminine hearth and also this mastery of skill. And so there is actually, to your point about like marking our calendars, like when I was looking back at some of the Venus, Eris, Jupiter, Chiron stuff, what came up was like strikes in France, protests, the Inflation Reduction Act being passed, citizens in Ukraine at the Polish borders seeking access as refugees, Ketanji Brown being nominated as Supreme Court Justice, and so all of these things, the story is going to evolve and really come to hopefully like a nice healing end and resolution and beginning again. And so I hope it's a time when we can see how, using our individual agency, whether it's like recycling or limiting water use or, going to work to get a paycheck, like can only go so far, to help ourselves and help the world. But like, what are the things that we need to awaken to on a larger scale at the individual level to use the power that we have in numbers to change all of these fundamentals and the foundations and the details of the systems that matter in order to heal ourselves.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that's very powerful. Yeah, March is a big month. There's going to be so much changing. Life is going to look different in April.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm really excited to see what happens within the collective. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to share? Any work you're doing you want to let people know about?
Yeah, I mean, whether it's, I'll just say, like, just to wrap up the other thought about the inconjuncts and the cardinal signs, like, yeah, if you're a cardinal sign or, you're a fire sign, or you're an Aquarius or a Gemini, you're being called right now, so pretty much everyone is being called in some way to step up and be vulnerable and do the healing that we need to do. So please step up and share your gifts with the world. And know you're not alone, even though it may feel that way. And then in terms of what I got going on, I do a consultation. So you can find me at taylorshuler.com/offerings if you'd like consult. I love to talk with you one-on-one. I love to help people find their passion, their purpose, their mission. I was in human resources, so I understand like stuff that goes on at work if you want to talk about that. I do locational astrology as well. And I am going to be in San Diego March 10th, 7:30 p.m. at the San Diego Astrology Society to talk about the finding your ikigai, your reason for life with astrology. And then I will be speaking at NORWAC on Saturday at NORWAC. Yeah, so norwac.net. If you want to be there, you can either come in person, and I'd love to meet you in person, or I believe it's the first hybrid conference ever, so you can do that. Sign up for my newsletter. I've got a membership community coming that's going to be really exciting for social entrepreneurs and activists, people who want to change the world, especially if you're someone who's like in a day job and you're trying to get out and just like want to know what's next. If you want to Google San Diego Astrology Society, you should be able to find it. I think it may not be on the website, so keep checking over the next couple days and sign up for their email list. And also follow me here on Instagram. I also have Facebook. So Taylor Shuler Astrology here on Instagram. And like I said, I'm starting a membership community soon. So I would love to see you there. If you sign up for my newsletter, you will hear about it first.
Wonderful. Yes. And so for me, I'm having a webinar on Sunday, The Power of the Moon. So there's still time to sign up. It's free, and you're going to learn all about the moon and her and how you can use her in order to improve your life, your sense of well-being and all of that. And I did a video series on Saturn and Pisces, so you can get that from the link in my bio. So anyone who's not following Taylor, you can just push the carrot and follow her. Or if you're new to me, you can push the carrot and follow me. We both love mundane astrology, so I'm so glad you brought in all of that that's going on right now. This has been a great conversation. You've got some great comments here. Ah, yes, thank you. Oh, Inner Consultant, what is your name? Inner Consultant took my Moon Mastery 101 course. Yeah, that's starting again on March 14th. Yeah, I don't recognize your handle. Yeah.
And yes, my Mercury is in, I don't know if you're asking me, but my Mercury is in Aquarius.
Yes, you totally have a Mercury in Aquarius. I can totally feel that. Yes, all about the collective, all about using your voice in order to help make things better. Yeah. I love it. Oh, hi, Courtney. Oh, so nice to see you. Okay, now I know that's your Instagram handle. Yeah. So Taylor, thank you so much for coming and educate. I learned so much about Chiron. I didn't know all of like the mythology around. Yeah.
And there's so much
I knew
more.
some of it, but you really helped us dive deeper into that and brought a new perspective.
Yeah.
So appreciate.
Oh, thank you. And thank you
sharing.
for having me. And if anyone's curious about learning more, the one resource I have is my 2023 year ahead horoscopes, where I go into a bit more detail about Chiron. If you're interested in learning more, you can get that at my website, taylorshuler.com/shop. So thank you, Celeste. It's always a pleasure. I love talking with you. And we'll have to
I love talking with you too. And we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yes.
Yeah. So have a great day, everyone. Thanks for joining. And thank you so much, Taylor.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.